Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
We are back with the International News Review. Steve Okun joining us, the head of the CIA, of course, famously this week or last week, relating to the U.S. strikes on Iran, said things were just severely damaged as opposed to being obliterated, which is the wording that the American president used. At the moment, things seem relatively calm there. The ceasefire that they talked about more or less is holding. Steve, what is your take on where we're at, a week after, nearly a week after the bunker-busting bombs did their dirty work?
Look, we really won't know where we're at. It could be years or a few years until we know if this mission was successful or if this mission is going to completely backfire on the United States. It is very possible that this will lead to some type of stability in the Middle East that we have been lacking for years, if not decades, and a lot of that instability came out of the Iranian Revolution in 1979 and putting in a country whose mission was death to America, death to Israel. So if the government of Iran changes, if this becomes a more stable region, it will have been a very successful mission. If, on the other hand, the Iranian government takes the lesson from this that we really need a nuclear weapon to protect us, because look at what happened to us without having one, and look at what has happened to North Korea, which has one, and no one has ever attacked North Korea because North Korea has a nuclear deterrence. So if this leads to Iran having a nuclear weapon, then we're much worse off. And so we don't know what the result of this is going to be for quite some time.
And that's kind of the point, Steve, isn't it? There is intelligence reports that suggested that Iran just moved a lot of its highly enriched uranium. I'm reading a stat here. The International Atomic Energy Agency said that Iran's 400 kg stock of 60% enriched uranium could no longer be accounted for. In other words, it could have just been moved, and they could just continue as before. It's not as if they're not going to be, how can we put this, emboldened or inflamed, is it?
Yeah. We just don't know. I mean, and that is why, and then Trump has taken this situation and has made it personal now. And when intelligence reports, initial intelligence reports, leaked in initial intelligence reports came out of the United States that said these weren't obliterated. There were no irrefutable success about the strike, that Donald Trump then attacked the patriotism of anyone who questioned whether or not there was complete obliteration, which he cannot know and no one can know until you get in there. And so it became, of course, with everything that Trump, he politicizes everything, he attacks everyone, and this is going to cause more damage in the United States politically, where look, this could have been a very good move by Trump. He did something no other president would have done, which was attack the country. And it might have been the right decision. It might not have been, but it is now it's just inflamed all of the partisanship we have to make it even worse.
Slightly surprised you saying that, because let's just take it from a legal background. You're a legal lawyer yourself by training. He's going against the rules-based order. It was an illegal attack. That's why other presidents haven't done it in the past. And if you're following the international laws of the rules-based order, this seems to have been glossed over somewhat.
I'll disagree with you.
You can't disagree with law,
Yes,
Steve.
I can. You can. You are if there is, you have a country whose purpose is to destroy you, death to America. That is what that government is about.
Nothing new.
And the fact that they are violating, Iran is violating their commitments, and they're violating international treaties on terms of weaponizing or trying to enrich that uranium. Iran was in violation of international law, and you are fully allowed to act in terms of what would be self-defense. You can take a preemptive strike against an enemy if they are arming against you. And that is what the United States did. Why Donald Trump changed, why he had an opportunity to do this, because Iran completely miscalculated after October 7th when Hamas went in and did its attack on Israel. And what has happened since October 7th is that all of Iran's proxies have been severely damaged. The Israelis went in and destroyed a lot of the Iranian air defenses, which made it much easier for the Americans to go in with their bombers without having any threat of getting shot down. That is what has changed. What's changed is the military situation has changed greatly, and it gave Donald Trump an opportunity to act that no other president had. And I'm not saying the other presidents would have done this, but they didn't have the same fact situation that Trump had. And you can blame the Iranians for what they have done after October 7th to put themselves in this position.
Steve, no one's discounting. The Iranians have ignored the strict restrictions put on them. And no one doubts the fact that the conflict between Iran and Israel would be a real one, or potentially a real one. I think the question is, did the U.S. have standing to get involved, even though Israel is an ally of the U.S.? Was it proper for the U.S. to take this measure when the U.S. is not directly impacted or threatened by Iran?
I think the U.S. had the absolute right to do this. Whether it was the right decision, I'm saying that is debatable. Should the U.S. have done this? What are the consequences of the U.S. going to do? I don't know. I mean, those are real questions and debates. Did the U.S. have the legal authority to do this? I think the answer is very clearly yes. The U.S. had the legal authority to do it. Should they have done it? I will say I don't know, because I could make the argument, you read the argument being made either way.
Yeah.
But isn't it a similar argument made by Putin? Russia, he's taken a preemptive strike against Ukraine to stop Ukraine from rising up against Russia. Does it not set an unhealthy precedent around the world? This preemptive strike idea. I have an issue with my neighbor. I take a preemptive strike.
There was no preemptive. Putin had no reason to invade Ukraine to protect Russia. There is zero reason for that. That did not exist.
Ukraine was talking about NATO membership, and he felt that NATO having an ally in Ukraine would be bad for him.
That is not the same as saying I will then have the authority to attack a country for doing so. Ukraine should have the agency to decide for itself whether or not it should be part of NATO. NATO should have the right to say which members they should.
But that Putin felt that was a threat.
That doesn't give Putin the right to attack the country. I mean, and that is
this is not an apples to apples comparison. But I think Neil's point is there. If you can say somebody is an existential threat to me for whatever reason,
Iran violated international law. Ukraine never did. This is not. This is completely different, and you can't say that because the United States had the right to attack. Had the right to attack Iran, gives Putin the right to attack his neighbors whenever he wants, because they might do something he doesn't like.
All right. Okay, we got to move on. The Indian Minister of Commerce and Industry, Piyush Goyal, recently made remarks describing ASEAN countries in the region as the B team of China. Now, at a scheduled Indian-ASEAN meeting held in Kuala Lumpur on Friday, the Malaysian co-chair put out a strongly worded message discounting that remark, as one would expect. Several Southeast Asian officials expressed concern, noting India's significant trade with China, et cetera, et cetera. How big of a deal is this comment and the ensuing news cycle stories?
Okay. The ensuing news cycle stories are irrelevant. The comment is very important because the comment it was inartfully done, but it raises a serious concern that the trading partners of ASEAN have. And in the use, I would never have used the word of B team, because that was very inartful and is inaccurate. But what is accurate is that what China is doing is they are flowing goods over ASEAN to the United States, to India, and other places. And what the worry is that as you have a conflict with China on trade and economics, as India does with China, as the United States does with China, as frankly just about everybody has with China, you don't want to have ASEAN or any other country being used as a backdoor to do what you're not allowed to do from China, and you flow it over a third country. This is a serious issue that the United States is negotiating with countries like Vietnam and Thailand and Malaysia. It is the same exact concern India has, and so it is a real question of when does something become an illegal transshipment and when is it legal trade? And the United States is making this a lot clearer than India did, but they're really aligned on this being an issue that needs to be addressed.
It's a very serious issue. I mean, India is talking about focusing on their trade partnerships with developed economies such as Australia and New Zealand and moving away from ASEAN. So, slightly provocative question, Steve. Does ASEAN have a China problem?
Everybody has a China problem.
No, but specific to what we're talking about, the backdoor deals.
Well, as does Mexico, as does the EU, as does others. And so the way the trading system works today, we'll try not to get too on the weeds on this. Like if you take a box and if you manufacture a product in China and you put it in a box and you have a made in China label on it and you send that to Vietnam and the box stays closed and you just slap the label made in Vietnam over the made in China label and you send it to the United States or anywhere as a Vietnamese product, that is illegal today. That is a illegal transshipment. You don't need to change any rules. That's not allowed. The question is what happens when you take all of these different components to China, and then they're assembled in Vietnam. How much transformation is required to turn that into a Vietnamese product, then to go on to India or the U.S. or wherever? And what the U.S. and India are concerned about, as is the EU, as are others, is that not enough transformation is taking place. And so do we need to redefine transformation under rules of origin? And if that is done, then trade with ASEAN will continue as it's always done, but ASEAN is going to have some restrictions on China. So it's a real serious issue that the Indian minister raised. It's a very serious negotiation going on between the U.S. and its partners in ASEAN right now. And the problem is that calling it the B team and calling a treaty with ASEAN silly is absolutely wrong, and the Indian minister should have never done that.
All right, we move on to Mr. and Mrs. Bezos. Jeff Bezos, Amazon tycoon, and Lauren Sanchez tied the knot yesterday in a sumptuous ceremony, according to media reports, of the rich and famous on a small island in the Venice's lagoon, out of sight of and sound of protesters. They had been planning to do it right in the heart of Venice, and protesters last week said, and they were forced to move their wedding party. Should we feel sorry for them?
They didn't really. I think this is even
I think
this was even overplayed. They didn't really change much of anything at all. And look, this is a good news for Venice, them having their wedding there. Look, Jeff Bezos made, 250 billion or however much he made because he created a service that people all over the world love and use. Now, maybe independent bookstores don't love it because he's put them out of business, but he created a service. He made hundreds of billions of dollars. If he wants to spend $55 million in Venice, and Venice is going to make $35 million because Jeff Bezos is having his wedding there, then good for Bezos, good for Venice, and good for all of the businesses that are going to benefit from this.
You don't genuinely believe what you've just said. That is the most Republican thing you have ever said on this show.
No, it is.
You are right of Trump at this point.
No, it is free market. Look, I do not pretend to be Joe Lunchbox.
I don't believe you actually believe what you've just said.
Is it wrong for Bezos to make money? Is it wrong for Bezos to spend money? Is it wrong for him to do it in Venice? No, no, no.
When I was Max's age, I read this sci-fi novel that was all the rage at the time, where we'd reach a dystopian future where 6 guys would sit around this dark table, oak table, and they would essentially control the planet's resources. Everyone laughed. It wouldn't really happen. It's happened. It's here now. We've got 2 or 3 guys essentially controlling the global wealth of the planet. It's disgusting, but that's where we are. This man, this James Bond villain spoof of a character, thinks he can go to a city in Europe and essentially annex it for the weekend. Tourists and locals be damned. I will do whatever I like. I will throw my money around. And the bigger picture issue here, Venice is being slowly destroyed by the heavy footprint of tourism. They are trying to scale back. Locals are being priced out of their own city. This is, I wouldn't even write this, it's so ridiculously over the top. If you're looking for a microcosm of the state of the world today, you've got the world's richest man annexing a city that their own locals can't be a part of their own city. He essentially takes it over. And we're supposed to celebrate this?
To be fair, it was one square. It was
not
one
the point.
Area.
It doesn't matter if it's one street.
Well, people can still access their city, though. I mean, come on.
The Venice government wanted him there. The Venice businesses wanted him there. He is bringing, and they have made a commitment that they are going to use as much local products, use as much local services, as much local businesses as they can. This is going to bring incalculable amounts of, and it may be a bad thing from your perspective, of people going, oh, I want to go to Venice now. I want to do what look at how beautiful it is. Look at the history there. I didn't realize this. It is going to attract tourists there. So now we could talk about whether somebody should have been allowed to make this much money. We could talk about, are we giving too much power to individuals? That is a very different debate of saying whether someone who has a lot of money can spend it as they want, and that it is done in a way that is benefiting the local economy, and it is welcomed by that government.
Most of the protesters were asking one simple question: why can't he pay more tax?
And why can't you look at what the debate is in the United States right now, where there is a massive debate going on of should we give tax cuts to the wealthy and cut Medicaid and add on to the debt of the United States. And that is a real serious issue. And I hope some of the Republicans in Congress stand up to try and get some of this done.
Let's look at this another way. Look, he has rented a wedding space. Okay, at its bare thing. He's paying, what, $20 million to the government, to the Venetian government, to rent it for a day. Like, okay, maybe people aren't real happy. I don't think it wasn't like he was in St. Mark's Square taking over the whole square, right? It was a side one. It was a smaller square. I mean, the city government's going to have $20 million to help with efforts to, make the city better, safer, cleaner, whatever. At the same time, everybody already knows about Venice. It's not like Jeff Bezos having his wedding in Venice is suddenly going to prompt all this tourism there. Like, that's ridiculous. No, it's summertime in Venice. There's a gazillion people there anyway.
No, but
there always will be, right?
Honestly, I don't really care one way or the other. But the broader point is over-tourism is a massive issue in Venice, a huge issue. Locals believe generally they are being priced out of their own city. They can't live there. They can't work there. They can't eat there. And this is like that argument taken to the moon. I mean, it's like a caricature of that argument. And that's the only point I think protesters are making. We're being priced out, locked out of our own city. Not literally. I mean, they can still access it, but it's what it represents.
No, these protesters are protesting the bigger issues that you have, Neil, which I think are valid issues. Is that if Jeff Bezos can afford $50 million for a wedding, why shouldn't he pay more tax? Why do we have so much income inequality? That's what they're using this as a microcosm of a broader debate. And yes, we should have that broader debate. Yes, there is too much income inequality. There is over tourism, and it's not just in Venice. It's in Amsterdam is having these issues. Other cities in Europe are having these issues. So all of this is out there. But my point is, Jeff Bezos has the money. He wants to spend it. He is benefiting the economy. So why would you object to that? If you want to make it into part of a broader debate, feel free to do so.
He's renting out the Aman Hotel, super, ultra luxurious hotel, renting out the St. Regis Hotel for the guests and things. Like, this is, you can't even imagine how many hundreds of thousands of dollars that would cost.
Wow.
Like,
I'm surprised he hasn't been given the Nobel Prize. I mean, I didn't realize he was that wonderful.
Mr. Cynical.
This is ridiculous.
But the point is, money's going into the economy. He's not taking anything away.
He's supposed to do it?
We're championing the world's richest man who lives in a country where there's no universal health care, no universal education. The money should be going there. So every kid in the US has a decent education. Every kid has a decent health care. It should be there. My bigger issue is, why aren't these protests on the streets of the US where they should be? That's where these protests should be.
Or in India, where you actually had another very wealthy person. But you had the same issue in India how long ago with the wedding that took place there, in paying all the money for Justin Bieber, and I can't remember who else was
hey guys,
the entertainers there. But
we got to go.
Hey, we are going to solve this problem when Neil and I are together for an hour next week.
We will. Enjoy that. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Right.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.